what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death. Now jumping straight into verse 8, to the angel of the Lord in Smyrna write. As Jeff talked last week, angel in this context was referring to a messenger, or most likely the pastor of the church in Smyrna. As we read on, these words are from him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. This is just to identify specifically that these words are coming directly from Christ. It resonated a little more with the people in Smyrna because of their history. In about 580 BC, the town was just destroyed by its enemies. It was leveled, it was reduced to rubble. Although the town of Smyrna itself did not cease to exist, it was kind of in a state of chaos. There was still a town, there were still things going on, but there was no organizational leadership or government. In about 218 BC, it was started to be rebuilt, and it was rebuilt as this model city, as this grand city, and it was just described by many authors of the time as a beautiful city. As the Acropolis, the original fortress set up on the top of a hill called Mount Pagus. It was known as the Crown of Smyrna. Smyrna itself was known for its library, it was known for its games, and it was known for the outdoor theater that it had. As this town was destroyed, the verse where it says, who died and came to life again, represented the town that had once died and then had came to life again. The first point that I want to make today, in the first slide that we have, is that religion is easy. The Jewish population in Smyrna was so caught up in their laws and their rituals that they missed the point. I've kind of dubbed this term this checklist theology. And I think most of us at one time or another could kind of relate to this. I personally, when I first accepted Christ, I found myself, okay, well, this is how this goes. Okay, I need to read my Bible, I need to pray, and I need to go to church. Bought this neat necklace with a cross on it and hung a nice picture in my room. And then I thought, oh, well, you got this thing called the Ten Commandments too, so let's see, love God, no idols. Does American Idol count? I kind of like American Idol. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Okay, got to work on that one a little bit too. Love your mom and dad, and do not lie, cheat, steal, covet, or murder. So all in all, when I looked at everything and I looked it over, I said, oh, I think I can do this. So I thought at that point in my life, things were just going to kind of be put on cruise control, and everything was just going to move forward. But what I soon found is going through this day after day after day, it was just a repetitive cycle. As we move to the second point, I just realized that following this list of rules is admirable. Spiritual disciplines are a very important thing. But at the end, there just is no reward. As I went through my checklist, there was just nothing. It was just I prayed, I read my Bible, I went to church on Sundays. It didn't really take me long to realize that this just wasn't working for me. Christ told the people in Smyrna that there is a reward for those who follow Jesus. But with this reward comes the next point, that following Jesus is tough. It's hard work. As we read on to verse 9, I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. Yes, for each and every one of us, following Jesus may bring affliction and poverty, but not in the sense of what was going on in Smyrna. I want you to stop and think about this and compare it to what we experience. The word that they used for affliction was called phlipsis. This wasn't just, our everyday run-of-the-mill stress, a little bit of weight on the world on our shoulders, a monkey on our back, that kind of stuff. This was actually described and defined as a burden that crushes. Nothing simple, not just a little bit of weight, but this pressure constantly feeling like you're just going to fold in and cave in and be crushed. The word used for poverty was tokos. This translated very simply as nothing at all. These people had no jobs. They had very little shelter. They had little food. They had nothing to look forward to every single day. They had absolutely nothing. As we read on there, I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Well, not only do they go through their life every day, they have nothing, they have this burden that they're carrying all the time. Everyone around them is against them. They're always talking bad about them. They're always just trying to demean them and lower them and diminish them. Well, the important thing here is to realize that this is a synagogue of Satan. In Luke 10:16, it said that he who rejects you rejects me, but he who rejects me rejects he who sent me. So simply put, these Jews in this time were claiming that they were God's people, but they really weren't. If we take that scripture, they were rejecting the Christians in Smyrna. In turn, that meant that they were rejecting Christ. And ultimately, that meant that they were rejecting God. This is not God's people then. And that's why they're described as a synagogue of Satan. Along these same lines, Christ then says, do not be afraid of what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Now, as you're walking around and you're thinking about this, these people are just in some of the most extreme conditions that you could possibly imagine. They have this pressure on them all the time. They have nothing. They have no food, no clothes, none of these things. And then now, after all this time, Christ came, he spoke all these words, he died, and we've went through this whole period of time where we haven't heard from Christ at all. And then now, the first thing he says to these people when he comes back through John is, okay, I know everything's bad. I know you don't have anything. But now, all of a sudden, you're going to be put in prison too. Well, if you can stop for a second and imagine that, just that in and of itself, the just bad conditions that they were in, and then now all of a sudden, they're going to prison. Well, regardless of what it says about the 10 days, to me, that's just irrelevant. It's just the fact that after all of this, they're going to go to prison. Now, at this point, I want to share a little bit of my personal story with you. I can remember a time when I lived in Kokomo, and I've battled depression on and off for years. I can remember this time where my depression had gotten so bad that it was just a chore to make it through the day. I was actually mowing my lawn one day. I was hot, I was sweating, I was short of breath, and I can distinctly remember that I was just asking God to take me home. I would never do it myself, that's not an option for me, but I was just ready to go. I didn't think I could make it through anymore. At that point, as crazy as this might sound, as weird as it seems, I just felt like someone had put their arm around me, and then I felt God speaking in my heart and telling me that I'm not done with you yet. So as eerie as that was for me, I started reviewing my life, and so I instantly went back, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to make myself better? What I did was I went back to my checklist. I started reading my Bible. I started praying. I tried to do it more and more. I went to church, and then I